All right, I think we're going to get started. I'm sure some more people will trickle in a little bit, but hi everyone, welcome. My name is Karen Liu. I am the PIT Global Hub Manager under the University Center for International Studies. And I want to thank you all for coming to our fourth event as part of the What's in a Name series on name identity, diversity, and inclusion. And one of the first events we've been able to have in person since pre-pandemic, so yay. Thank you all for wearing your masks and everything. We appreciate it. Before we begin, I do want to acknowledge that we are currently in the Frick Fine Arts building on campus, which is on unceded Osage and Shawnee lands. And just a little background about this whole series. The staff within the University Center for International Studies began planning the What's in a Name series months ago, and our conversation started around our personal experiences with names and microaggressions, biases, and stories of ethnic and cultural history. Names are connected to our identities in a vast number of ways: gender identity, racial, ethnic identity. Names are also connected to other topics like colonialism, migration, and more. With this series, we seek to explore basic tools in name etiquette while also reflecting about what our names say about us and how they may be used to define who we are. So tonight's event is focused on the topic of legal names and the LGBTQIA+ experience, and we are very thankful to have the amazing Rosalynne Montoya here on campus as our featured speaker, as well as our esteemed facilitator, Anupama Jain, and panelists Stefan Dan and Drew Medford, which you will meet in a little bit. So we'll begin with the presentation by Rosalynne, and just real quick, I'm gonna properly introduce her. So our featured speaker, Rosalynne Montoya, usually referred to as Rose, is a Hispanic, bisexual, non-binary, transgender woman. Rose's pronouns are she, her, hers, and they, them, theirs. She works as a model, actor, public speaker, makeup artist, advocate, and content creator. Rose is also a board member of Aadya Rising, a nonprofit working to fill in the gaps to help the transgender community. She has been in campaigns and featured by TomboyX, Savage X Fenty, Yandy, FX Networks, New York City Pride, Planned Parenthood, and more. Their goal is to spread love and education about their community as they share their story. So without further ado, let's welcome Rose.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. I am so honored to be here today. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous. It has been almost 3 years since I've public spoke in front of people that I can see their faces. I go live just about every day and I see a ton of people through a screen with their username, so it's so lovely to see each and every one of your faces. I just wanna let you all know how beautiful and how handsome you all look. Thank you for being here and thank you for having me. That was such a great introduction, thank you. In case you didn't know, my name is Rose, and I do a lot of things. She's a Renaissance woman, if you will, and she's not just a woman, she's also non-binary. I will continue to explain more of what that means. It's been a journey. Let's start there. I wanted to start by sharing a really, really special memory that I forgot had existed until very recently. Just over a year ago, I moved back in with my parents, which has been a whole experience in and of itself. And I found this beautiful little video of myself at just 4 years old, and I wanted to play it for you. This is a little bit of my journey. Technology, right? All right, let's get this in full screen, shall we? So my whole life, I've always been Rose, and this just kind of helps prove that point. I've always called myself Rose. I've always loved playing make-believe, but what I didn't realize was that it's not make-believe. This is really who I am. I am Rose. Thank you. Are you King Rose? It's okay if we can't get it to work. I can explain it. You can see the bulk of what just happened there. So in this video, I'm 4 years old, and I'm playing make-believe. I have this gorgeous little robe on with these beautiful little rose embroidery. It's an old video, okay? I'm a millennial. This is an old VHS tape. This was a beautiful little silk robe that my parents allowed me to wear because I used to pretend that I was Joseph from the Bible. Joseph with a coat of many colors, right? That's how my parents could contextualize this super high femme little boy who called herself Rose. I was born in a small little town in Idaho that you've never heard of. I grew up on a farm to a very, very religious family and a very religious community. In fact, this photo is from December 1995. I was baptized in the Catholic Church. This photo is from my baptismal. That's my abuelita there holding me. It was tough being raised in a conservative small little town where no one understood who this high femme little child was. But I found a place where I called home. Even though, my family didn't always get it, it was a journey. But luckily, I have 2 older sisters who always loved to play with me, and I've always been really close with. They allowed me to play with their toys. I played with Barbies. I played with Dress Up. I played with Polly Pockets. That was the highlight of my childhood, was getting to play with my sister's toys. They were never my toys, even when my sisters didn't play with their toys, and only I did, along with my little brother. They were still always labeled my sister's toys because they're girl toys, right? And I mean, she's a girl. But no one believed me yet. I don't know if you can see how femme I used to be, but I've always been a girl, right? So in that video, you saw me tell my mom, "Mom, my name is Rose." And she was very confused by that statement. She was like, "Oh, you're a king named Rose?" "No, Mom, I'm a queen. I'm a girl." I had a very eccentric babysitter when I was a little kid. A fun fact, she drove us into a telephone pole. She blew up my microwave. She buried my dog. But she also taught me something incredible about the world. She showed me this beautiful film called Titanic. I was so obsessed with Kate Winslet's character, Rose, in the Titanic. And that's where my name comes from. Because I saw this gorgeous, free, very strong-willed woman who got what she wanted and stood up for what she believed in and followed her heart. That is everything that I wanted to be. And so I called myself Rose from the age of 4. Here's me playing dress up again because I love a dress. Now I love a pantsuit, but we still love a dress. But what I was taught when I was younger, as I was growing up and, expressing my femininity, calling myself Rose, I was taught that that was wrong. I was shamed. My community, my society, my church, my school, my own family told me this really strong message that I wasn't good enough and that I need to hide my femininity. I'll never forget 2001. She's a millennial. I heard about this brand new gaming system coming out called the Wii. Ancient, right? And I was so excited because we didn't have video games growing up, right? I lived on a farm. We didn't have cable. We had books. We had sticks. We had a tree house. And I had a really great childhood. I had a lot of fun. But we were so excited when the Wii came out, and I asked my parents, "Mom and Dad, can I please get the Wii for my birthday?" I'm a Libra, my birthday's in a week. And I was like, "Please, I want the Wii so bad." And my parents were like, "Well, I'm sorry, Rose, we can't afford that." Of course, they didn't call me Rose, but I'm going to reclaim that, right? My name's always been Rose. And so the compromise that my family made, by the time Christmas came around, both my brother and I really wanted the Wii, and so my parents said, "Okay, we will do it if that's the only present both of you get. It'll be one present for the both of you, nothing else. But the one stipulation is, here's a trash bag. I'm going to need you to go get your Barbies, your Polly Pockets, and your Dress Up and throw it away." And so I did. And I became that. I'm so cute, right? But I was taught from a very early age to hide my femininity, to suppress it, and man up. And that never felt right. That's so forced. That's not who I am. But I played sports. I did. The first day of practice, I was playing catch, and this boy that I was playing with threw the ball. It landed right between my legs, and I fell over crying. I was in so much pain because it hurts to get hit between the legs, no matter what you have down there. And so I fell to the ground crying, and my coach looked at me and he said, "Stand up." And I'm like, "I'm in pain, I'm crying." He's like, "You need to man up." He never liked me. So I quit sports. I stopped doing that. I never liked it, even though I was forced to do it. And I found solace in being on stage. This is where I'm so comfortable. I don't know why I said I'm nervous. I wasn't nervous. I'm very happy to be here. I learned about musical theater and drama. My dad was a worship pastor. I told you I grew up very religious, right? But the little bit, the silver lining I found was this. I'm wearing more lip gloss in that photo than I'm wearing lip gloss today. I loved dressing up. But it was always a costume. It wasn't quite real, even though it felt real to me. I mean, I have a lot of photos of my childhood. There are a few where I'm smiling that hard. I'll never forget that day. I put on lip gloss at least 10 times backstage. This was a photo from The King and I. I played one of the twins, my brother and I together. That's his arm around my shoulder. So as I grew up, I continued to be a very, very femme-presenting individual. I've always been, you know what I mean? Always been queer. And in around 8th grade, I realized something. There's a reason I always felt different. Something started to click. I was in the boys' locker room. It was 8th grade. This is 2008. Something fun about my life is whatever year it was is the grade I was in. It makes it very easy. I'm not a numbers person, so it helps. And around 8th grade, I was in the boys' locker room. My best friend, his name was Mitch. He was standing there. He was messing around with one of our other friends, Colin. And they were playing this silly little game that they liked to play in the locker room that never made sense to me until this day in 8th grade. They would pants each other. And when my best friend was standing in front of me, I was sitting down, right? Like a good little girl just waiting, for class to begin. Like I had already changed in the bathroom stall. I was not about to change in public. And my best friend is pants right in front of me, and I'm like, oh my God, I need to leave. I realized that day that I was attracted to men, right? And that's when things started to click. But I felt shame still. And so this is me in 9th grade, 1 year later. I was this cute little nerdy, very emo boy. And it's because I was living in shame, I thought that I was an abomination. I finally figured it out. Everything made sense. I'm feminine. I like boys. Oh my gosh, I'm just like Kurt Hummel from Glee. That's the year it came out. And I was like, I don't know what to do about this. I don't know what to do. And so I became very depressed. I dated a man. I was 14 years old, and I dated a 20-year-old. It was not healthy. I do not condone that. But it was the only other gay man I ever knew. Because growing up, I didn't know a gay person. I didn't know a trans person. I didn't know the word transgender. And so being gay made sense. Because gay boys that I saw on TV were super effeminate. And I was like, oh, so am I. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I'm like Kurt Hummel. Got it. But when I came out to the church, I was told that I could either step down from the leadership role that I had, where I was, leading youth group every Wednesday with a small group of, younger boys. I led church camps. It was my life. I loved it. And I got to be in a lot of the plays, which I loved even more. But I was told that I was a sinner. And so I learned to have a lot of shame again. I hated myself. You can see the amount of bracelets I have in this image. If she works. There's a lot of bracelets in that photo. The reason was because I was hiding my self-harm, because I didn't feel good enough. And when I was outed to my family, It was quite a traumatic experience. I never got the chance to tell my family that I was gay, that I was attracted to men. I was outed to them by the same boyfriend who I eventually broke up with because it was very unhealthy. And when I was, my family told me all of their fears. What I heard is, you're a sinner, you're an abomination, you're going to hell, we don't accept you, we don't love you, you're gay, that's gross. That's what I heard. But what they actually told me was, we love you so much, Rose, that we want you to have a perfect life. We want you to have a future. We want you to have an eternity of bliss. This sounds attractive, right? The idea of heaven. I no longer agree with that. I don't believe in that anymore. If you do, great. I love that for you. It's just not my journey anymore. And so it took about 5 years for my family to kind of come around and start understanding. We had a lot of conversations, a lot of arguments. I found family, though, in my friends, in chosen family. I found people who felt like me at school. I found people who felt like me at church. And I finally, by the time I was in college, I was so confident. I was confident enough to take a shirtless selfie. I was confident to tell my friends who I was, live my life, have partners. But something still didn't quite make sense. That's when I came out as trans. In college, I did a lot of drag. And doing drag was what led me to realizing that my femininity is more than a costume. Because when I called myself Rose at 4 years old, it wasn't pretend, it was real. That's how I've always felt. And seeing myself in drag the first time, I'll never forget. At Seattle University, the largest event on campus is our drag performance. And I had never heard of drag. When I heard about it in college, I was terrified. I was like, what is that? Why are these people dressing up as girls? And what is up with their makeup? But then I went, it's the biggest event. All of my friends went, and I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's do it, let's go. And I met this gorgeous drag queen. She was like 6'8" in heels. Like, she was massive, right? And I was like, who is this giant woman? And they had this cute little amateur drag race, and they asked for volunteers. And I was like, me? And I was chosen, and I was put up in drag. And in the back room, after seeing myself in the worst drag makeup you've ever seen, I was like, that's me. It was like looking in the mirror and recognizing myself for the first time. And it was not a great image, but I loved it. It felt right. And I went out, I strutted my stuff, and I found myself. I won the competition. Everyone praised me. Everyone knew my name on campus after that. And it taught me that being feminine is not wrong. People will still love me and accept me for who I am. And so at the end of that school year in 2015, right after graduating college at 19 years old, I came out as trans. And I didn't immediately call myself Rose. I knew I'd always called myself Rose, and I loved that name, but I tried out a few names here and there. I started a Tumblr page. Does Gen Z have Tumblr? Do you know what that is? Okay. And I started a Tumblr page, right, exploring my gender identity, and I was like, maybe I could be Christine, because I was obsessed with Phantom of the Opera, right? And I was like, maybe I could do Christine. And so I went to a therapist, right after graduating college, and I was like, hey, my name's Christine, right? Call me Christine. And he was like, okay, so Chris, today we're going to talk about your childhood. Chris! That's a man's name. Nope, can't do it. Absolutely not Christine. Nope, that's not my name. Okay, let's try something different. Remember when I was a kid and I called myself Rose? What if I did that? In college, I tried so hard to start this nickname for myself. I'm not going to dead name myself, but I tried to get a nickname for my name because it was more affirming. It didn't stick, so I always wanted to have a nickname. And I was like, okay, well, Rose can be my nickname. What can I do from there? And so I went with Rosalynne. I don't know where I got it, but I chose Rosalynne. My drag name was Porcelain, like porcelain, so maybe that's where it came from. But just a few months later, I was called into jury duty. This is August 2015, and I was like, jury duty? I barely am old enough to go to jury duty. What is this? So I went begrudgingly. I was not in college anymore, so I couldn't get out of it. And so I was like, okay, let's do this, go to the courthouse, whatever. And while I was at the courthouse, I got an idea, and I said to myself, okay, maybe I can inquire about changing my name. And so I went to the front desk lady who organized all of us, and I was like, do you do legal name changes here? And she was like, of course, this is a courthouse. And I said, work. Okay. So I wanted to change my name, and she's like, are you trans? And I froze. I was like, do I out myself? Yes, I'm trans. And she was like, my niece is trans. She just legally changed her name. Let me help you. And I started crying because I had never met someone who had a family member that was trans. I had a couple of trans friends at that point, but to see someone who is such a strong ally, a complete stranger to me, saying, let me help you. Let's change your name together. So she told me the right floor to go to, the right form to ask for, and better yet, she told me, okay, so you're really young, you're 19 or something. I was like, yes. And she was like, I'm not going to presume anything about your financial status, but if you need financial help, there's a form for that. And I was like, there's a form? I can save money? Because it's very expensive in some states to change your name. And I was like, I will definitely need that form. And so she gave it to me. And 2 days later, I had an appointment at the courthouse, and I was able to legally change my name. The judge approved it immediately. He looked at me, and with one look, he said, Rose? Yeah, we're doing this. We're going to change your name right now. And he waived all the fees, so I didn't have to pay a cent to change my name, because it's who I've always been, and that's what I deserved. So 6 years ago, almost to the day, September 29th of 2015, I legally changed my name to Rosalynne Jamie Montoya, because it's always been my name. And so this is me at graduation. I skipped that photo. This is me in drag, really, really bad drag, right? Cute. And from that point on is when I started to tell my family, right? So this is 3 months into my transition, and I send an email to my family, and I'm like, hey, so remember how I came out to you before 5 years ago? Well, I need to do it again. My name's Rose, I'm trans. I told them the entire story I just told you, and it was really hard. It was like going back to square one all over again. My family voiced all of their fears. They told me, you're never going to be successful. You're never going to go to the University of Pittsburgh and talk to people about your story. You're never going to be beautiful. You're never going to have the amazing, wonderful partner that you have today. They were so scared for my future because the representation that they had seen was in the movies, was in media. And the people that they saw was Kill Bill and Silence of the Lambs. Well, I'm not a serial killer, and I'm not a man named Bill. And they saw Mrs. Doubtfire, and I said, well, I'm not a drag queen anymore. I used to do that. I'm retired. But that was what they saw for me. They didn't see this happy, successful future that I now have today. And that is such a blessing. I am so lucky to be here today and be able to say my name is Rose. I am legally Rose. Last year was one of the most challenging years, I think, for all of us, right? It's been a long time since we've been able to commune in person like we are now. And I went through a lot, but there were some beautiful blessings that happened through it. Last year, as I said, I moved back in with my parents. We've reconnected. It took them another 5 years, but my parents came around. They mess up. They accidentally, call me Rose every so often, or they don't call me Rose, they dead name me every so often. But it's been a really beautiful journey of love. It took a lot of fighting. It took a lot of arguments. It took a lot of intentionally separating myself from them. This cute photo is from 2011, one of our family vacations. We've all come a long way since then. We thought we would recreate this cute little photo that was at the same beach at the same time of year. I love my siblings so much, and if it weren't for my brother especially, he's gay, so we've always been besties. I mean, obviously he's gay. And but obviously, I was never straight. I was never a boy, obviously. But I'm so lucky to have my family and have the support I have now. It was hard. It took a long time. It's been a decade since I came out to them. And, they voiced their fears, but I proved them wrong. And I will admit, a lot of my fears came true. I've been through a lot of struggles in my life. But I've also been through a lot of incredible things, and my dreams came true too. Right after I legally changed my name, I was a bartender and a waitress at the time, and it was really challenging because I transitioned on the job. I told them right from the first day that, hi, my name is Rose, and I'm trans, but they never called me Rose. And 3 months after starting the job, I legally changed my name to Rose, and they still didn't have my name on my tickets. So when I would serve my customers, give them their food, their drinks, whatever, they would see this boy name on the ticket. And I said, no, my name is Rosa. At the time, I solely went by Rosa. And my job didn't believe me, and they said, well, when you started here, that wasn't your name, so we're not going to change it. And I said, it is my legal name, and it is my right. Change my name in your system. It took months of fighting with HR, fighting with my boss, but they eventually changed it. And then I quit, and I said, bye. I don't like this job. Y'all have been horrible. Thank you for finally calling me by my name. I'm going to move on. And I became a makeup artist, and I found love. During COVID, we weren't allowed to do makeup, so the stores closed. It was a hard year, like I said last year. But 6 months after stores closed, and I had to move back in with my family because I didn't have a job, I didn't have income, I didn't get unemployment until 6 months after. It was challenging. But the blessing that I found was reconnecting to my family and falling in love with them again, becoming really close with them. And I was able to, after 6 years of being out as trans, finally have gender-affirming surgery. And I didn't just have one, I had 3. And that is such a blessing because not every trans person gets that opportunity. Not every trans person has access to that. And I recognize the privilege in being here today, looking the way I do. I'm quite fond of the way I look, finally. Took a lifetime, but everyone deserves that. And I'm so happy to be here. I've never been prouder. I've never been happier. And that's because I was able to go through all of these hard things. I had to learn the lessons the hard way. And even though, a lot of my nightmares did come true, I faced a lot of discrimination. I had to distance myself from my family for years. I used to struggle with suicidal thoughts and self-harm. But today I'm really proud. I'm proud to be myself. I'm proud to be here in front of all of you. And I want to remind you that it's worth it. I know it's super cliche to say, but it gets better. And actually, better than that, you get stronger. We all have something we have to go through in life, whether it's discrimination, whether it's being called names, whether it's financial trouble. We all go through something, whether it's being Latina. But you get stronger. In every single one of my struggles, I have learned something and I've become better because of it. And I'm now able to share my story and help other people. Because when I grew up, I didn't know a trans person. I didn't know a queer person. So I felt alone. I felt shame. But today, there is so much beautiful representation of trans people, and I get to be one little piece of that. It is my greatest honor to be able to be the person that I needed when I was younger. It's been a long journey, but I'm really, really proud to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I just got really emotional. I wanted to open up the floor to any questions that y'all might have. And at the end, I also have a little giveaway. So if some of y'all want to come closer near the end, I'll let y'all know. The mask I'm wearing is my merch. It's been an incredible year on social media. I completely blew up. It's the reason I'm here. Mostly thanks to TikTok. But my fans on TikTok called themselves my transplants about a year ago. And I took that pun and I ran with it. And so I have cute little merch with plants and trans flags attached to them. So I have some shirts to give away later. But I wanted to ask y'all if y'all have any questions or if y'all, it can literally be anything. I'm such an open book. You are not going to offend me. Hi. What's my favorite role that I've played? Myself. That's a good question, I think one of my favorite things that I've gotten to do is, I didn't get the role, but it was my favorite audition. Can I share that story? This last year, back in April, I have this amazing agent who contacted me a year ago, thanks to TikTok. Thank you, TikTok. And she's gotten me some really cool auditions. In March, I was able to audition for Pose. And if you haven't seen Pose, it's about the trans community and the queer community, especially those of color, back in the 80s and 90s, at the height of the AIDS pandemic, at the height of ballroom culture. And I was auditioning for this tiny little role that's in the very last scene of the film. And it's this trans mother who's talking to Blanca, the main character of Pose. And she asks Blanca, "Hey, Blanca, I need some help." And Blanca turns to her and she's like, "Yeah, what's up, girl?" Like, she had just won legendary Mother of the Year. Spoiler alert, I'm sorry. It's been a long time, okay? And she was like, "You were so successful, Blanca. How do you do it? Like, I feel like a failure. I've never won a trophy. I have all these kids I take care of. We've never won trophies. I want to give up. What do I do, Blanca?" And she turns to her and she said, "Why are you here? Why are you doing this? You're here for them. You're fighting for your children, for the generation to come." And I'll never forget that audition because I cried during it. It was so beautiful. It was so empowering to me because it reminded me why I do what I do. And it was an honor to get the audition. It was an honor to, have Ryan Murphy see my face. I was like, okay, is my makeup good? I didn't get the role, but it was my favorite audition I've ever had. Hi.
What are you looking forward to in the next year after the world is open?
Hopefully, right? So long as all... Yes, I'm ready for my booster shot. That's a great question. I'm really looking forward to continuing, to just do my best at helping other people. I love sharing my story and I love uplifting others. I don't have any huge projects I'm working on. I had a secret one I was working on, but it unfortunately just fell through. I was really excited about that. But one thing I am excited for next year is I'm going on a sponsored vacation with some of my followers. All of you are invited. It's not in the books yet. So if you'll follow me on social media, then you can apply to come on a vacation with me. I'm really excited to go. I get to choose wherever I want. I really want to go to Brazil. I want to go to Rio, or I want to go to Thailand. I want to go somewhere with a lot of rich queer culture and history, as well as a beach. So that's what I'm thinking, and so I'm really excited for that because I miss traveling. And so that's what I'm really excited about as the world, begins to reopen. I loved coming here and seeing the Natural History Museum. I just got to see a dinosaur bone for the first time in my life in person. It was really cool. So I love traveling, so I'm really excited for that next year. Hi. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do so many things. So I'm on the board of Aadya Rising. That's Aadya Rising. It's a Hebrew word. One of our founders is Jewish. And we've done many things. We are just a year and a half old, the nonprofit, so it's very, very young. It's in its infancy. But we've done so many giveaways. We do a monthly giveaway on our social media, TikTok and Instagram. We give away a binder every month, we give away 5 binders every month. We're sponsored with GC2B. My good friend Marley is the founder of GC2B, and so we're able to do that. And then starting this month, we just partnered with my good friend Mare from Your Body. And I'm wearing Your Body right now. They have tucking underwear. It's amazing. And then they also have tucking leggings for trans femmes who, want to affirm their bodies. And so we do giveaways monthly. And then we do a scholarship fund. So last year we were able to give away 4 different scholarships to help people afford their surgeries. So we helped 3 transmasculine individuals get top surgery. And then we also were able to help 2 trans femmes get electrolysis, hair removal. We also do support groups. And so we do like a weekly support group for trans femmes and trans masculine people. Just we have random topics every week. It's really fun. So we do a lot of different things. So thank you for asking. I'm really proud to be on the board. It's 100% volunteer, and I love it. We meet every single Wednesday, and I am so excited every week to like hang out with them and plan our next thing. And we have lots coming in 2022. Hi. What was that? How did I become an influencer? Can I tell you something controversial? I don't like the word influencer. So, thank you though. I became an influencer a minute ago. My first viral video was right after I graduated high school. I wrote a sermon, and I'm obviously not religious anymore, but I wrote a sermon about what the Bible actually says about being queer. It says nothing, by the way. If you look at the original text of the Bible, the original Greek and Hebrew and everything, it has nothing to do with consensual adult relationships that are focused on love. It has nothing to do with that. And so I made a video about it on YouTube, and it went viral. That was the first time back in like 2013. And then ever since then, I've just been sharing my story. I started documenting my transition. I started hyping up other trans people in the world. I'm obsessed with Laverne Cox. I saw her speak at my university years ago, and it changed my life. I came out as trans that night. And to my friends, I already knew, but my friends didn't know yet. Tumblr knew. And, since then, when I became a makeup artist, after quitting my bartending job, I really wanted to be a makeup influencer for a long time because I love makeup. I did drag for a few years. I'm obsessed. I do drag again now. I came out of retirement for Aadya Rising for fundraising events. And so, just sharing my story is how it happened. It happened organically. The makeup thing never took off, but then a year ago during the pandemic, I was officially fired from my job due to COVID in August, and that's when I started using TikTok. I started posting almost every day and just talking about my life, answering any question under the sun, and I mean it. I am an open book. You can ask me anything. I'm, and answering people's questions and talking to people who didn't understand anything, right? Because I come from ignorance. I didn't know the word transgender till high school, till Orange is the New Black came out. And so, I understand what it's like to not know anything about a community, and be so intrigued by it. And so answering people's questions and keeping a level head in comebacks. I used to be called the CEO of comebacks on TikTok because I will answer any question. If people say, what's in between your legs, you're a tranny? And I'm like, okay, that's a lot to unpackage there. That's not a pun. I was like, you're allowed to laugh, it's okay. I was like, well, first off, that's not a nice word to say. I can say tranny because I can reclaim it, but a lot of people don't like that word, and I don't want anyone who's not trans to ever call me that. And, and then I'll say, and then what's in between my legs is none of your business. But I do have a lot of videos on it, so go watch them. I'm not always comfortable talking about every subject, but I have discussed almost every subject, at one point or another. So often, even if I'm uncomfortable answering a question in the moment, or in person, or in a video, I'll be like, well, just follow me. You'll figure it out. There's a video about it. At one point, I was comfortable enough to talk about it. Yeah, so it's been a long journey, but it's been really cool. And I love being a content creator. You can call me an influencer. It's not my favorite word. Hi. Yeah. You did? I love you. Great question. It still exists. I never deleted it as much as I thought about it. I have deleted many posts. Most of the photos and posts that dead name me or photos of me as a boy, I don't like those to typically be public, and or I didn't for a while. I don't care as much today. But it was called The Trans is Beautiful on Tumblr, or maybe just Trans is Beautiful on Tumblr. I started it right after Laverne Cox posed nude in Allure magazine in 2015. It was the month I came out as trans publicly to like my friends. And she started the hashtag Trans is Beautiful. And I was like, that is beautiful. You know, literally, it's incredible and so empowering. Because my whole life I was always told, you're not femme enough, you're not girl enough. And then the second I came out as trans, they're like, well, you're way too masculine now. And I was like, I thought I was too girly. I'm so confused. Am I too masc? Am I too girly? What am I? And I stopped caring about what other people think, thanks to that hashtag. And so I started a blog, you know, to celebrate trans bodies and how beautiful trans bodies are for the uniqueness that makes us trans, you know, my broad shoulders, my huge hands, my large feet. I'm gorgeous just the way I am. I've learned to love my body because I'm trans. I love being trans. You know, it's one of my favorite things about my life because it's made me who I am. It brought me here today. It's brought me to my partner, to my friends, you know. It brought my family closer together than any of us ever expected it could. And it's not been easy, but, you know, it's been worth it. Hi. Yeah. How much time do we have? Because, oh my goodness, it's been a journey. I'll say I currently live in Arizona. Can I have a time check, though? I currently live in Arizona. Awesome, thank you. I talk fast. And so in Arizona, it's tricky. It's not as easy as it was in Washington. Living in Seattle, it was amazing. Healthcare was so easy, but I did my research. You know, I found a doctor who was very trans-affirming. You know, I did a lot of Google searches. I asked around. I asked my therapist. My therapist at the time was a trans guy. And, you know, thanks to, you know, having community, I was able to navigate it really well in Washington State, in Seattle. Moving to Arizona was a whole other story. You know, this last year has been so challenging because I have yet to find an affirming doctor. I've now been to 3 doctors in Arizona, and I live in like the Phoenix suburbs, and not a single one of them has understood. I have had to educate so many healthcare providers on what does the word trans mean? Hi. When the doctor looked at me when I was born, he said, this is a boy, and my family looked at me and said, this is a boy, and I was raised a boy. And then I told them, no, that's wrong, I'm a girl. And that's what it means. You know, I had to break it down that basic to some doctors I've seen in Arizona. Because today I have cis-assuming privilege. I don't like saying passing, because I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm not lying. I'm really a girl. I'm really trans. I'm really non-binary. That's a whole other like discussion that could be its own keynote in and of itself. But I've had to educate a lot of doctors, especially about bodies. Like the last time I saw my doctor, I needed to get an STD screening, know your status. It's my biggest kink, know your status, it's hot. And, you know, it's so important. You know, I do a lot of sex education online. And so I just needed to get an STD screening. I was like, hi, I've been with a new partner, I just need to get tested. And my doctor was like, what's your medical history? And I said, oh my God, I'm trans, I've had this surgery, I've done that, I've had my tonsils removed, I have scoliosis, I have a heart condition called Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. And he was like, what, you're trans? And I was like, oh, yes, I'm trans. And he's like, and why do you need an STD screening? I've had a new partner since I last got tested. It's been 1 month since you were tested. Yes, and I've had a new partner since then, and I need to get tested. You had a new partner last month. Yes, I'm human, okay? I just need a test. And he said, wait, so you've had these surgeries, but you've never had bottom surgery. When are you doing that? Do you have a doctor that's helping you with that? Do you need help finding a doctor who can get you bottom surgery? When do you need to have your vagina? Because you need to have a vagina because you're a girl and you don't have one. And I was like, you're a doctor, dude. No, I don't. I'm a girl. I don't want to be here. I just want to leave. I don't even want to do the test. And I got the test, and I ran out of there crying. It was really challenging. That was very recent. That was a couple of months ago. And so it's been challenging most of the time in Arizona, but there have been beautiful moments too. My surgeon, her name is Dr. Lay. She lives in Arizona too. She's in Scottsdale, right outside of Phoenix, and she is trans, and she's a miracle worker. She is my fairy godmother, literally. She gave me these. I'm very thankful for her. And having a trans surgeon was so affirming because she gets it. She did not ask one single question that made me uncomfortable. And she worked magic. I mean, literally, I'm obsessed. She did my neck. I had my trachea removed. Not removed, shaved down. You can't get your trachea removed. That's necessary. I got my chin shaven down, and she's very skilled with what she does, and she knows the trans body very well, trans masculine, trans femme. She's incredible. So having a trans surgeon is amazing. It took me 6 years to have surgery because I never felt comfortable enough with a surgeon to touch my body because I was terrified. But I've had some great experiences. I've had some horrible ones. It's a journey. I'll say insurance is even worse, but there are good ones. It's just, we have a ways to go when it comes to healthcare. So those are a couple of stories, some fun, some bad. Thank you. Yeah, one more question. Hi. Wait, what does your mask say? I love that. I wish I had a dog to say hi. I love that. How do I correct a doctor who misgenders me? That's happened a lot to me too. It depends on the situation and how confident I'm feeling that day. If I have makeup and my hair's curled, I look like I do today. My name is Rose. The average day, I'm going to be like, actually, my pronouns are she, her, and I would appreciate it if you read the file next time. Voicing your needs and voicing your boundaries is really important, but it's hard to do. It took me a long time to learn that, and I'm still learning that every day. One thing that first therapist I had after coming out as trans, the trans therapist I had, he told me something one day, 6 years ago, that changed me forever. Because I grew up with a lot of religious trauma, right, as I briefly touched on, and he said to me, after I told him, well, I'm a sinner, I'm imperfect, this world is imperfect, and he looked at me and he stopped me, he interrupted me, he said, Rose, he called me Chris, but he said, Rose, you are perfect, and you are worthy. And I started crying, and I was just like, I am? And he said, yes, you are. And after I realized he was right, it took me years to realize that and actually believe what he said, is when I started realizing I deserve to be treated with respect. I deserve to be called the correct pronouns, she, her, and they, them. I make it very easy for you. I look a lot like a girl, right, because I am a girl, and she, her pronouns, are typically assumed. But if you feel so obliged, I would appreciate they, them, too. But, correcting your doctor is so intimidating. It can be really scary, but it's worth it. You deserve it. It's your right to be treated with respect in healthcare. The Supreme Court made that decision last year, June 2020. I cried. I made a video about it. I was so excited. You have protection against discrimination in healthcare. You're allowed to make your voice be known. That is your right. So speak up for yourself if you can. Bring someone with you. That's a great recommendation I have. Bring someone with you to help you to advocate for yourself if you struggle to do so, because it's your right. You're allowed to have someone there with you. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We're still going to have more Q&A. We have a panel coming up. I'm so excited. It's been an honor to share a piece of my story with y'all. Does anybody want a t-shirt? Do y'all want to move forward if you want a t-shirt, and I'll throw some? So I have 3 different shirts. My merch line is called Transplants. It's a cute little pun. my followers named themselves my transplants, and so I have some shirts for y'all. I have a medium, I have a 4XL, and I think I have an extra small. So I have 3 different sizes for y'all if y'all want to come. So I have a medium. It has a cute little rose on it. Wait, can I see some hands or something? Like, can I get some clapping? Like, do you want a shirt or no? I'll keep it. Okay. I'm not a good thrower. I'm sorry. I told you I'm bad at sports. I just showed you. This is a 4XL. I almost made that. This one is the extra small. It's blue. It's my favorite one, personally. Oh, wow, I did it. You caught it. Thank you.
This table's too tall for me, so I have to move. Okay. Thank you so much, Rose, and thanks everyone for being here. So we're going to move into our panel discussion. So real quick, I'll just introduce everyone that's up here right now. So Anupama Jain is going to be our panel facilitator. She is a scholar, educator, and writer specializing in literary and cultural studies. They have over 20 years of experience in higher education, conducting original research, teaching varied populations and diverse topics, and building community. Anu is the author of How to Be South Asian in America, Narratives of Ambivalence and Belonging, which investigates how the American dream shapes the national imaginary and influences public policy. Since 2015, they have been designing customized equity interventions as a consultant for over 100 groups in the greater Pittsburgh region. From 2017 to 2021, Anu was the inaugural executive director of Pittsburgh's Gender Equity Commission in the mayor's office, and they received their PhD from UW-Madison and their BA from Bryn Mawr College. You know Rose. Stefan Dan maintains Stefan Dan over there maintains a legal practice focused on commercial finance transactions. In addition, Stefan has been involved with the Name Change Project, a project that provides pro bono legal name change services to low-income, transgender, gender nonconforming, and non-binary people through partnerships with attorneys since 2014, and provides pro bono name change services to people who do not qualify for the Name Change Project. While he currently focuses his efforts on direct client service, in the past, Stefan has led the training and education of several law firms and corporate legal departments on the Name Change Project, and has presented trainings on legal name changes at Trans Pride, the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh, Project Silk, the Delta Foundation, and the Persad Center. Stefan graduated from Duquesne University School of Law in 2009 and is currently a counsel at McGuire Woods LLP. And Drew Medved is an alumni of the University of Pittsburgh Dietrich School of Arts and Sciences. He currently serves as the Pennsylvania Regional Organizer for the Human Rights Campaign, the nation's largest LGBTQIA+ rights organization. In his free time, he volunteers to make the University of Pittsburgh and the City of Pittsburgh a more just and equitable place for those in the LGBTQIA community. So I'll pass it off to Anu.
Oh, okay. Hello. Sorry, I haven't used a mic with a mask, so hopefully you can hear me. If you can't, give me a wave. Thank you so much, Rose. As soon as I heard about this event, I just felt really lucky for us here at Pitt to have a chance to hear your story, and it was absolutely exceeded expectations. And I've watched some of your stuff, although I don't think I've seen the famous Tumblr. Which is okay, it sounds like. But I think this is a really important area, and I'll make a quick mention of how I have come to thinking about names and name changes, which is in a very different way. For those of you who may have seen my name, I have that name that when I was in grade school, the teacher stopped, gave up, and said, and then moved on right to the next person. A teacher asked if they could call me Anne. This is a pretty famous story because I was a really agreeable young person in grade school, and I said, sure, and then I never answered. So she had to struggle to call me Anu. That's 3 letters. It's like the word ANEW. And so that is pretty benign, except when that happens to you, your whole life, when every person entering the plane is welcomed as, hello, Miss Smith, and then they look embarrassed and chagrined. And it's not because someone is doing something to me. It's because some of our names present obstacles, and every situation with a new person is an obstacle. So I have recently, at 50, started introducing myself as AJ. The reason I waited is because basically I was saying, fuck you. You will mispronounce my name, you will butcher it, but I'm not giving it up. I will learn to live with this name. Even though it's easier, I find that I say AJ, people don't stop to ask me where I'm really from, how to spell it, how to mispronounce it. But it was really, in my teenage years, I was fighting every day to say, I belong here. And even though you don't think my name makes me an American, I'm still going to claim it. And when my book was published with my name in all lowercase, that was the day that I could say, I don't have to prove to anyone that I'm being truly myself. I can call myself whatever I want. So I've come to this place really, really differently, but my whole life, my name was an obstacle to belonging in certain groups. And so even if your name isn't like Rose's experience or my experience, every single one of you goes through life being called by a name, and taking power over that name, I think, is really what we're talking about. And that is, someone said it, it's a universal experience. And I think empathy, reminding ourselves that the experiences people have who are not like us, who we're not familiar with their stories, that those things are truly ours to name. What makes me feel like I belong? What do I want to call myself? And we should not have to live in a society where people fight to be called what they want to be called. It is human right. It is basic courtesy. It is basic empathy. And when people get into all sorts of arguments about how hard it is, whatever. It just isn't if we want to treat each other with dignity and respect. And I think that's the core piece that gets to be missing. And religion is absolutely one of the reasons, because people have lots of shame and anxiety, and they've been taught certain things. But if we can return to that core of, in a name, in our ways of living with each other, that's our humanity. And so whatever we think, just call people what they want to be called. It's so simple. It really is really simple. But I think it helps when you have courageous people talking to us about this and acknowledging it's not easy. And I just want to reinforce one other thing before I turn it over to this wonderful panel to share their stories and concrete information. But finding a community of people who will let us call ourselves what we want to be called and who will treat us that way is hard and super worth it. And so I'm glad for everyone who's here. We're going to move a little bit to some nuts and bolts. And so I'm going to turn to Stefan, if that's okay. And I'm also going to ask, when Drew starts to speak, if you want to share anything about your story as well as the Human Rights Campaign. So Stefan, same for you. But you're going to talk a little bit about the Name Change Project. Tell us about it, and if you want to bring in your own story, that's great.
Great. Thank you, Anu. Yeah, so I'm an attorney, and Karen mentioned that sort of my day job is I work representing banks or companies getting loans, or the banks giving loans. So that's kind of how I make a living, but it's really the boring side of what I do. The work that is most important to me, and is by far the most important work I do as an attorney, is my name change work. And I do a lot of work through the Name Change Project. I started actually, I guess is it 7 years? Yeah, 2014 October, so just about exactly 7 years ago, working with the Name Change Project. And through the Name Change Project, it's a great project. It pairs people looking to legally change their names, members of the trans and non-binary communities that are looking to legally change their names. It pairs them with pro bono volunteer attorneys in their local community to complete that process. And here in Pennsylvania, the process it's not incredibly challenging, but it's very daunting and overwhelming for many reasons. Rose said it perfectly, it's been a journey. So at the beginning, I was providing just name change service work through the Name Change Project, and then I quickly realized that there was a whole part of the trans and non-binary communities that weren't participating in the Name Change Project, whether because they were over income or for other reasons. The waiting list through the Name Change Project was at various times has been as long as 6 to 12 months, which is a huge deterrent as well. And people would rather try to forge through the process on their own than wait 6 to 12 months for an attorney. So I actually probably do the bulk of my work now outside of the Name Change Project, again, still providing pro bono legal service to members of the trans and non-binary community that are looking to legally change their names. And that's both minors and adults. I've worked with clients anywhere from 8 up to probably 65 years old. Here in Allegheny County, I could talk all day about the Name Change Project, so please cut me off or redirect.
Maybe I'll shift something and also invite all of our speakers to jump in whenever it makes sense to you. But talking about accessibility, I partly heard Rose saying it varies by states, which I think we all know, and it can even vary in Pittsburgh by county and different things where the laws don't all add up. How accessible are resources and information, and has it gotten better at least? I guess, positives?
Yeah, so I think in many ways the accessibility is really great, especially at least in Allegheny County. So one big limitation of the Name Change Project is that it only sort of serves people in southwestern PA. It really only serves people in Allegheny County, which is great because we are a population center in southwestern PA. But for people just over the border in the outlying counties, the resources just, vaporize. There's very little to none in some of those outlying counties, with some exceptions. But here in Allegheny County, I would say that the Name Change Project and attorneys who are both pro bono and private attorneys who are providing name change and even gender marker change services, we have great resources here. There's dangerous resources accessible here in Allegheny County. The Name Change Project Attorney Handbook is available online. If you Google Allegheny County Name Change Project Attorney Handbook, you will find our attorney handbook that we train volunteers with. The version you find will be from 2014 or 2016, and we have had some phenomenal progress here in Allegheny County for trans name changes. So you will not be seeing that information and won't be able to avail yourself of that information. So in some ways we have great accessibility here in Pittsburgh. In other ways that accessibility can kind of, I guess, go full circle and turn on itself with that out-of-date information. And even a lot of people have posted on Facebook or blogs or other online outlets their experience, and some of them have documented their experiences so well where other people can proceed through the name change pro se, meaning without an attorney representing themselves. But again, that information was from 7 or 8 years ago, and we have these new procedures in place that would really add a lot of good protections for members of the trans community. So it really cuts both ways.
And I wonder if, Drew, if you want to say a little bit about, anything you want to add to the discussion so far, but also about how the Human Rights Campaign, if they have ways to support resources, recommendations?
Sure. I'll start with the latter. So I work for the Human Rights Campaign. You've probably seen it. It's the blue square with the yellow equal sign. They're most prominently known for helping get gay marriage legalized in the United States. And they don't have a ton of stuff in terms of changing your name and helping you through that process, but we do have a ton of resources on our webpage. You can search anything on there related to LGBTQ topics. if a professor is discriminating against you, if you want medical care and you don't know where to get it, stuff like that, you can search it. And most states have their own HRC, so I work for the Pennsylvania one. So we have our own stuff too, so you can always contact me or go to our page for that. And I will agree that changing your name in Allegheny County is relatively easy. I am an openly, and proud trans man, and so I came out of the closet while I was at Pitt, and I wanted to legally change my name. And I was one of those people on your 6 to 12 month wait list, and I said, oh, no, that's too long, I've waited 19 years. And I decided that I was going to go my own way because I wanted to get my name legally changed before graduation because I really wanted to walk across the stage with the right name and not have to worry about changing the document later, which is a whole other hassle. Yeah, it takes a lot to... It's way easier to get your name changed and go through with it than it is to try to change a bunch of documents as time accrues. Anyway, so I went and found a lawyer, and I raised money with the GoFundMe to change my name while I was in college. And I went, and it took a while, but I went to the court, and they did it. And Judge Ward is the person who does it. She's the, what are they called? Like the justice?
The judge.
The judge.
Special name change judge.
Thank you. Yeah, she's the special name change judge. So on the last Friday of every month, I believe, they have everybody who's getting their name changed in that specific courtroom. And she's super affirming, and she's very bubbly and very nice, and it's a lot of trans people in there. And yeah, anything you want to add?
Yeah, so Drew's describing the special name change project or the special name change procedure. This is the new procedure that was instituted 4 or 5 years ago, I'm forgetting now. But the direct beneficiaries and intended beneficiaries of the special name change project were members of the trans and non-binary community. So in Allegheny County, or in Pennsylvania in general, we have a name change statute that it includes some protections that members of the trans community can take advantage of. In Pennsylvania, all name changes are required to be advertised in 2 newspapers in the county where the name change is proceeding or in a neighboring county. But there is a provision right in the law that allows us to waive that publication requirement if publication would jeopardize your safety. And here in Allegheny County, we can request that protection at will, basically no questions asked. The standard is very favorable to the petitioners right now, which would be a person seeking their name change. It's a really great standard. I've lost this argument in a couple counties surrounding us, Butler County and Washington County. The judge in Butler County, after the hearing, went off the record and basically almost verbatim told me that unless you can come in here and show that your clients experienced past physical abuse, she wouldn't grant a request to seal the record or waive publication, which is a rubbish standard, asking people to go get hurt before our justice system would protect someone. It's infuriating. And it's not a standard we should be living by in a society. But here in Allegheny County, we have the polar opposite. We can basically go in and request that the publication requirement be sealed, and we can seal the record at will as well. So court records are public records, meaning we could all take out our phones right now and go to the court's website and start trolling through whatever case came up or we wanted to. For a nominal fee, you can search by name as well. So sealing the record basically converts that, takes it out of the public record and makes it a private record, which is admittedly probably the less important of the 2 protections, but also very important in my mind. And since it's readily available, I advise all my clients to take advantage of it. And so the special name change procedure really applies if you can seal the record or waive publication. So it's not exclusively available to members of the trans community, but I would say over the last 4 to 5 years, 99+% of the people attending the special name change hearings that Drew attended and just described have been members of the trans community. And those people that I know of that were not members of the trans community were there for some other basically tragic reason. I know, I know of two out of the 5 or 6 people over the 6 years who were not trans, both had family members who were murdered and were changing their names for those reasons. And there are other similarly tragic reasons for those few other people that were not members of the trans community. So as Drew said, it is incredibly affirming. The judge is educated, not perfect, but educated. She will misgender people, but not from a place of malice, just ignorance, old age.
Yeah, I was going to say old age and
In
lack
an
of
endearing
practice.
sort of way, not criticizing. But it's a real benefit and a real reason you should seek out an attorney, even if you aren't seeking a name change, or even if you just know somebody who is, strongly recommend they reach out to an attorney. Tell them to Google my name and email me or call me. My firm information is readily available on the internet. Even if we just provide information to people, I tend to provide full service representation. A lot of people come to me partway through the process because they start on their own and then they sort of get stymied in the process with all the waiting periods and where to go when. Each month I probably help anywhere from 1 to 4 people that start pro se but just need a little extra help to get over the finish line. So definitely, if you only take one thing away from this panel discussion, get an attorney. It's worth it. I do all my work pro bono, and we can, as Rose said, in Washington and King County, I think, for Seattle, we can usually waive court costs here in Allegheny County if you qualify financially. And right now, for those who don't qualify financially, my firm covers the court costs anyways. So, basically $0 for a name change. Why wouldn't you get an expert?
Yeah, I really agree with that advice. I wish I had done that. It was just luckily so easy where I was able to do it. I think most counties and most states do require that you have to, announce your name change in a publication, like a printed newspaper, for example, for a few weeks prior. Washington is one of those amazing states where that is not required. You can just go to the judge and just do it. And I love what you were saying, that it's so much easier to change your name before you get all of these documents that have your name on it. Because I'll say, changing my name legally through the court system, easy. Changing my degree, changing my ID, changing my passport, changing my social security was the hardest. And I have yet to change my birth certificate because Idaho, it was illegal in the state of Idaho to change my birth certificate due to being trans unless you have bottom surgery, which is just not an interest of mine. And so I was unable to until a year ago. They just passed a law where I now can. So I'm so excited to return. I know it's weird. Excited to return to Idaho because I want to change my birth certificate to have my name and gender be correct. So,
well, thank you. And I wanted to see if you each had questions for each other, and then we'll have time, of course, for the audience. But I wanted to make sure that there was a chance for cross conversation, more examples maybe of things people might want to keep in mind if they're going to go through this, common things that come up, either obstacles or things that are particularly hard. I was just thinking all of those systems of work separately and they're institutional. And before I turn it over to the three of you, and I can pop out more questions, but I'm sure you have them for each other. I just wanted to repeat something I've been saying a lot since COVID shut down in March of 2020. And most of the world feels alone a lot of the time, differently than before. Most people's routines have changed, etc. And here we're talking about something so important and central to people's lives, changing their name, making sure the world knows what their gender identity and sense of belonging is. It can also be really scary, especially if you've had negative experiences. And I want to remind people that you are not alone. We have people here. I think I'm really touched and amazed by the work that they do. And in Pittsburgh, this is a new thing, but there is a commission for LGBTQIA plus communities in the mayor's office. It's really new. They're just figuring out what they're going to do. But they're a group of people really trying to make sure that our local laws change in the ways that they need to, so no one in Pittsburgh has to struggle. Because we need to be living lives of meaning and not struggling with officialdom about something like this. So I just want to remind you, I know it can seem scary for everyone, and then especially if we're parts of vulnerable communities. But if you can hang on to, you're not alone, look up HRC, certainly follow Rose, it sounds like, would be a good thing if you're on social media and TikTok, which I'm old and out of practice, so don't know that one. But so I just think it's important to remind folks, it can feel very much like you're alone, but it's not necessary. Did any of you have any thoughts about common experiences or challenges that come up with name changes, stories you've heard, or if you have questions for each other or ways to augment the story?
I have some general tips since I did this kind of recently. I also am not from Pennsylvania. I am from North Carolina, and it is still illegal for me to change, my birth certificate. So that is just something to keep in mind, that even though you can get your name legally changed here, you're still going to face some barriers if you're not from here. Another thing that I wish I knew is that just because you get the name change in the court and it's relatively easy, it doesn't mean every step of the way is going to be as easy as that. I actually brought a lot of my artifacts from changing my name, if you want to look at them. That name change seal I brought the application you need to change your driver's license, the social security stuff, the letter from a doctor, which you need in a lot of this kind of thing. It takes a lot more than just the one court date. So just be prepared for that mentally and financially. There are resources like us to help you, but that is something that I wish I had known.
We should talk, Drew, because we can change your North Carolina birth certificate.
I don't, really?
Yes!
So this is a reason to talk to an attorney, because some states have this terrible requirement of requiring surgery. But a lot of these states have an exception to that, which is if you get a court order legally changing your gender marker, which we can readily obtain here in Allegheny County. I was actually able to help a client earlier this year. We completed the name change, and then she was completely distraught because she was born in Missouri. And she found out she couldn't change the gender marker on her birth certificate, and she was basically so distraught, she was like, why did I even change my name? So we did some digging. I reached out to TILDEF, the Transgender Legal Defense and Education Fund in New York. They administer the name change project, so I have a good relationship with them, and I'm shameless about reaching out to them for help. And they pointed me to the statute in Missouri, and we found this exception, and we were able to get sort of a supplementary court proceeding to the name change petition to order the gender marker change, and she was able to change her birth certificate in Missouri, of all places. And I have a North Carolina-born client right now where I've just done the research this summer, so that's possible.
You just made my life. Thank you.
Yay!
You better work. That's so exciting. When I found out a week ago that I could change my birth certificate in Idaho, and I sobbed. I'm so happy to hear this connection. Yeah. Some tips that I have based off of what you were just saying is that, it can be daunting, but it's so worth it, and you are deserving of it. Don't forget that. That's a preface to what I'm about to say, because in order to legally change your name in most places, you have to have lived as yourself, your true self, for a certain amount of time. I had to have a note from my doctor saying, Rose is trans, she has gender dysphoria, she's been living as a girl for a year. Well, I hadn't been, but if you have a good doctor, a good therapist, they can write those letters for you. But those are the three main things that you need to have in those letters typically. You're trans, you have dysphoria, even if you don't, because you don't need dysphoria to be trans. But if you want to change legal things or, do medical things, that's typically necessary of the verbiage, which is silly, but we jump through the hoops we got to jump through to be ourselves sometimes. And so, it's been worth it. And I'll say changing my social security and my passport were so challenging because my birth certificate still to this day says the wrong name and the wrong gender. And so to change those documents, I had to bring my birth certificate. I had to bring my therapist note and my doctor's note who prescribed me hormones. And those two letters connect my birth certificate to my court-ordered name change, which then connects me to my license. And I have two letters, one from my therapist, one from a doctor who was overtaking my hormonal care, to connect to my driver's license, which then led me to be able to change my social security, which then led me to be able to change my passport. And I had to bring every single one of those documents each time. And I had to get a new letter for each step. So it can be daunting, that takes time, but it's so worth it. I was planning a trip to Mexico, and I needed to renew my passport because it had the wrong name and the wrong gender on it. And this was 2 years ago. I did not look like a boy. And, as society defines it. And so I was like, well, I can't use this passport. No one's going to let me into any other country. And so I had to rush to do it. I had like 2 weeks to change it because I'm a procrastinator, the house down. And so I had to literally, the day I went to change it, they were like, well, you need a new letter from your doctor and a new letter from your therapist. I ran across town in Seattle. I was in heels. I was just off of my job. I ran across town to go to my doctor's office before they closed. I was like, I need a letter so I can get my passport. And they were like, we have copies in the back. We'll just quickly sign one. We'll put your name. We're good. So if you have a good doctor and a good therapist, it can be so easy.
Anything else that either of you would like to add? I feel like I'm full of more information than I had, and I know that it does vary by place to place, and I was just thinking of something, Rose, that you said, and I do teach at Pitt, so the students will probably groan. Doing your homework, doing your research, right? That because there is information that you can obtain, and I do think there's a lot of allyship that people want to facilitate folks getting information. And there may be other reasons that you would change your name. I wonder if there are situations in which you would advise people not to change their names. Is there a scenario? Are there certain states that it's just not worth trying, move to a different state? No.
I'm not aware of any states where it's not worth trying.
Okay, good. That's good to hear.
The only time I've advised a client to postpone a name change, they were in Westmoreland County, which Westmoreland County for name change purposes is exactly the same as Allegheny County. It's a great jurisdiction to be in, even though you're not in Allegheny County. But the process is a little slower. And they had this amazing trip with their family booked to Ireland. And so it was early in the year, say February, March. We weren't going to finish with the name change until, say, June. The trip was in October. The passport takes at least 10 to 12 weeks. And so I told this client, I'm not going to be the reason you can't go to Ireland on this amazing trip. So we waited, and we filed we got everything ready. I think we filed like a day or two after they were back in the U.S. and proceeded right through it. But that's the only time I've advised anyone to wait. I will say name changes are a matter of state law, so that the procedure varies in every state. It's probably going to be a close approximation across all the states, or at least certain states will clump together in a very similar proceeding. At least in Pennsylvania, if you want to change your name or know someone who wants to change their name and they're in Allegheny County, make sure they do it before they leave Allegheny County. We have the best procedure in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That's 67 counties, I believe. We have the best right here in Pittsburgh. Seriously, do not move without calling me. And I say that somewhat jokingly because life happens, but I've had clients who move out of Allegheny County, and it's like I said, those resources kind of vaporize very quickly. I work to put people in touch with resources, but it's sort of a handoff, and who knows, what happens after that.
I will add to that thank you for that information, but I was able to expedite my passport. I got it in 2 weeks rather than the 10 to 12, which is average. You can expedite it. It does cost a few $100s, so it's not accessible. But there is paperwork that you can do in order to expedite it, and you just have to pay, which is such a hassle and really unfortunate. But it is an option. And I had a second point, but I just went blank.
I mean, I think that as someone who's been studying and trying to understand gender in an academic context for quite some time, this really is a different moment, and the internet and I think self-advocacy by groups who are very vulnerable to a lot of state-sanctioned violence of all sorts. I'm sorry, now my mind is going to undocumented people and trans people. Anyway, we have a lot of vulnerable populations, but their self-advocacy is changing the law. It's even the legalizing marriage, gay marriage, whatever the campaign was called. Sorry, I was in the state of Maine at the time. But lawsuits started in Hawaii in the 1980s, so it took a really long time, and we're still not consistent throughout the country in terms of our law. And that's something that I think is really important about trying to get consistency. We see this also with abortion. Sorry, I can't stand the news. Everything makes me think of everything else. But why I'm saying this is that our notions of gender are undergoing such rapid cultural debate right now that it is really unprecedented. And I'm seeing ideas that I studied 30 years ago. Feminist intersectionality, I didn't use it for the first 20 years I taught because students were just like, what? And now this is a buzzword, right? And so I think that there's something, I don't want to say to be hopeful about, but there is certainly a tremendous upsurge in people saying, wait, gender is not this simple story of this binary. This is not how people live their lives. And so I think having things like the Name Change Project and having the Human Rights Campaign really give people a central place to put our voices and say, why are we trying to hold on to this idea of gender? And I know it's religion, I know there's lots of things, but we can keep asking ourselves this. What is my investment in gender norms? And because I think I see a lot of people, especially young people, saying, I don't buy it. I don't buy this story you're telling me. This doesn't match my lived experience. And I think every generation of people needs to start talking with their peers more and more in open ways, because we need to get, I hope, very soon, although it's probably going to take years, to make this a non-problem. And I think sharing your stories and your expertise, like I said, I learned a lot. I hope people in the audience did too. And we're going to turn it over to you before I see if anyone wants to make a final comment or...
I wanted to answer your last question briefly.
Yeah.
You asked us, when would we say perhaps not to change your name?
Okay, please, yes.
I want to say that legally changing your name is a bureaucratic nightmare. It's a process. It has no merit over your life. It has no level of value to who you really are. Your real name is your real name. It doesn't have to be legal for it to be real. You are who you are. I believe you. I want to remind you of that because when it comes to, being a marginalized person, whatever way that happens to be for your existence, changing your name could be potentially dangerous. And your safety is always number one. So prioritize yourself, prioritize your safety and your well-being, whatever that looks like. And if that means waiting to change your name or not changing your name, it doesn't have any true meaning over you or your value because you are who you say you are, and your name is still your real name. So I just wanted to stress that. I'm all about affirmations because we're constantly told these negative messages every day in and day out. And so I like to, remind people of happy little positive things because my therapists have always done it for me. And I've learned to do it for myself, so I wanted to do it for y'all because it's important.
Maybe we could do another round of applause on that note. And I see a hand is already up, so I'm going to take some questions. There's a hand up back there. And Sorry.
I said, hi, Manuel, I remember your name.
Hopefully everybody can hear the question. And I'm sorry if it's really a nerdy question, but it's actually something that I think is important to think about, because very often we get content with thinking that things are on the upslope or the fight is on the downslope, and that our efforts have paid off, and now we're really just going in one direction. So the question is about political incidents in terms of how, in one county you have these procedures that are sensible and reasonable and just humane, and next door you have something that is completely different. And so are these judges that are elected, are they appointed, and at what point in that process do we as stakeholders or advocates have some sort of impact?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in Pennsylvania, county judges are elected. And I should know this as an attorney, but there may be a procedure where if someone sort of resigns midterm or passes away or something, or steps down for health reasons, that there may be an appointment, but they would face election sort of in the next election. So judges in Pennsylvania and in Allegheny County at the Court of Common Pleas, which is our trial level court where the name changes proceed, are elected. And after they're elected, I think every 10 years they face a retention election, which 10 years, yeah. So it's a pretty cushy job, and their salaries are set by state statute. If you pull out your phones and Google Pennsylvania trial court judge's salary, I think right now it's around 183, 187. So it's a pretty cushy job, especially if you're sitting in, McKean County, where your probably average income might be, your average salary in McKean County might be 20 or 30 grand if you're lucky. So to have someone who probably looks a lot like me, white, cis, straight, probably male, so sitting with all that privilege and that pile of money behind them, that's a real problem. And there's not the education or the resources there. Here in Allegheny County, we have some very big law firms that participate in the name change project. Two very big law firms, actually international law firms. Reed Smith is one, and they administer the name change project. Their annual revenue is over $1 billion. My law firm's revenue last year was over $800 million. So we have clout, and again, we are sitting here as white males in suits. So we kind of walk around the world and get what we want. So we have a lot of that benefit here in Allegheny County. In Butler County, just north of us, the next county north, the political climate is completely different. While Allegheny County generally votes Democratic, I would say Butler County probably always votes Republican. The education is not there. They also don't have a team of attorneys running to court every day of the week asking for these things and arguing with the judges. Arguing is what we just talk when we go to court and we present a case to a judge. For name changes in Allegheny County, it's basically always civil, at least these days. No arguing really involved, but that's what attorneys call it. So it is really, there are these real disparities, especially as the person asking the question pointed out. If you have someone who lives, say they live at 1 Main Street, and the next house over at 3 Main Streets is in the next county, there could be totally different procedures and outcomes for their name change. So it is a real problem, and I don't know that anything's really being done to address it. I know the Pennsylvania Bar Association, which is a legal attorney group for the state, was working to make other counties' name change procedures more like Allegheny County's procedure. I have to admit, it was in the form of sort of a rule and recommendation or a report and recommendation. So it didn't have the force of statute. And to get some of those changes in other counties is a real problem. I don't know that I have a great answer for it. But vote is one of them. That was my first thought. Vote. And judge elections, you get into the polling place, and they're kind of comical for judge elections. And we're going to have one in November, so seriously, do your research and go vote. The list of names is ludicrous sometimes. Sometimes it's like 10 or 12 people deep, and you're like, how am I supposed to research all these people? I don't know them. I don't know any of these names. I maybe recognize some of them from the signs on the street. Do your research. Try to figure out what they've done in the past for their work, who they've supported. Ballotopedia provides some information for people running for office. When I go to other counties, I will Google the judges I'm going in front of to try to figure out, do I have a chance? Am I going to get slaughtered? Will I maybe prevail? You should be doing that as well. So voting's a real way, especially for judge, even though it seems to be one of those throwaway elections because it just seems so overwhelming when you are potentially voting for 10 people in a primary and 6 people at the general election.
Some resources on being able to access research so you know who to vote for and know your rights when it comes to, changing your name or, fighting discrimination would be HRC, right, which is so important. The ACLU, I highly recommend following my good friend Chase Strangio. It's spelled like strange without the E-I-O. He's an incredible trans attorney, and he posts so many incredible informational resources about everything we're talking about and more. I also highly recommend the Trans Law Center, Trans Equality Now. There's so many amazing resources out there that will help educate you on who to vote for, different legal processes, how to protect yourself, your rights, etc. Those are just a small list that I highly recommend.
And for students who are in attendance, I mentioned the city, and I hesitate because people who are parts of marginalized groups, whenever we try and go into the system to change it, we're also constantly confronted with the way the system excludes us or decenters us. But there are really good opportunities to impact local law. We are a small city, and I have met interns from Pitt who got to write law within like 2 months of working for the city. And it's not easy, but the internships are really, really great opportunity. I lived in Pittsburgh for 6 years before I started working for the city, and I got such an education in just being a citizen. Like, I just know it's still bureaucracy, it's all of this. But if you can find a way to be, to feel like it's a good moment to do that, it's a really great educational opportunity, and you can really get hands-on experience. One of the examples I'll give you, and I haven't tracked this since COVID shut us down, but we were working on gender-inclusive bathrooms, and there's Allegheny County law, and Stefan may know more. People were working together to change the law because it required that you had a male and female separate sex-labeled bathrooms. That's a public law based on facilities historically, and I don't know the whole history, I've heard bits and pieces. But so for us in the city to have gender-inclusive bathrooms, a lot of small businesses really struggle because they had to have those binary bathrooms. And so you start to learn about the law, and you start to learn where the actual barrier is, that when people built bathrooms not to code, they would pay fines. So you start with a pattern where all the folks who confront this, the easiest thing is not to build 3 bathrooms. It's not the most affordable, I should say, not easiest, but it's not the most affordable. And I worked in the city-county building, and it's going to take us 5 years to fix the building before they can make new bathrooms. So in that time, something that is, once again, hopefully going to be a non-issue in our future, who cares about bathrooms? But that should not be such a focal point. But when you start to look at the law, you start to see how these pieces fit together. There are no easy answers, there are no simple answers, but we need to work together on these very critical things. And it's true, I think that building community is the only way we sustain ourselves. And Rose, I was going to say it's true about affirming and celebrating that also all of these identities, and I'll just circle back to this, we still have few minutes for questions. I just really think telling our own stories when it's safe, when we wish to, keeps us remembering to be joyful. This is who we all are, everybody, and people should be able to have the name that represents that feeling of joy and rightness. Other questions or comments? Karen in the front here.
There is nothing I would love more. Because the last time I did one of these panels, I worked for the university, and I kind of bit my tongue a little bit. And today I'm not going to, because I think you deserve to know the truth. So, like I said, I came from North Carolina, so I was kind of traumatized in my own way when I came out. And I expected a lot better being in a liberal city in the north, and this wonderful university that has so many wonderful people that are truly accepting. I would say the majority of people I met here and worked with were really supportive and understood what I was saying. I didn't have to do a lot of explaining, which is entirely different than where I came from. But I will say a lot of the facilities here are archaic. The policies here are kind of ridiculous. We talk about what policies, statewide and nationwide matter and how they, pertain to us. But really, the university, it's poorly reflecting what we stand for. They don't even use gender-inclusive pronouns in the non-discrimination policy. So if you are non-binary and you do get discriminated against, I don't know what's going to happen to you. There's also no consequence for, being discriminated against by your gender, because there's no true definition of gender discrimination within Pitt's policy, which is something you can write to the Vice Chancellor of Diversity about. Also, I think, Pitt as a whole, if you find your friend groups, if you find your family here, your chosen family, there's a lot of different groups. T is for, they're a trans group here at Pitt. My buddy Max started it back in the day. So yeah, it's about finding the right people, but also stick up for yourself. If a professor misgenders you, you hassle them, or you contact me and I'll help you or something, because that's ridiculous. And fight against the university if they give you a hard time, because that's just a part of who we are, So, yeah.
And GSWS, of course, is
yes, and GSWS is a
yeah.
great resource with wonderful faculty that will listen to you and help you navigate that process. I didn't really know about them when I was a youngin', but yeah.
The Gender, Sexuality, and Women's Studies program, which I'm sure a lot of people know about, and which I teach in sometimes. There was another hand or two, maybe. I see one here, and I'll keep looking. Please.
Yes. Yeah, I would love to comment on that, because things have radically changed since I left, and it's one of the things I am really trying my best to get it reversed. So, like I said, I'm from North Carolina. That's my catchphrase. And so I didn't have the most inclusive health insurance, and it's also my parents' health insurance. So it wasn't really an option for me to medically transition with that insurance. And luckily, at the time, Pitt, through their student health center, Dr. Byers and one of the nurses there, provided hormone replacement therapy as part of the fee you pay to the university to have health care. And of course, you have to pay for the prescription, but that's not too expensive. It's a regular drug. It's maybe like $50 to $150 for every 3 months. So,
That's discounted.
Oh, maybe it was discounted at the
I've
university.
paid way more for my hormone.
I don't know.
That's a discount.
It could have been the university discount. I'm not sure, but it was way cheaper than. Yeah, you're right. It was discounted because going not with insurance was way trickier and way more pricier. But at the time, you could literally, set up an appointment at Pitt's Health Center, explain that you're trans, go through, a few questions, a few appointments, and then have your prescription. They show you how to do it right there. You get it at the pharmacy. You feel safe. They also give you, if you were trans, you would get free unlimited therapy at the counseling center. Thank you. Which was another wonderful resource, and I think they might have also gotten rid of that. And now you have a cap, like you have a limit to how many times you can go, which is ridiculous because you need a letter for everything you do to be trans from a therapist. And also, Pitt has gotten rid of that hormone replacement therapy program. They no longer provide HRT for trans people, which is very concerning considering you're sending people who are, between the ages of like 17 and 22 out into this big scary medical world to navigate with their parents' health insurance or no insurance at all. And you don't have the money to pay for it either. And you could get discriminated against when you know that at the university you have a doctor here who's gone through the proper training and it's relatively cheap.
I had a really similar experience at my university, and I wanted to give a resource because being from Idaho, same story, right? And my parents' health insurance was not great either. I was not able to medically transition through my parents' insurance until 2017, I think, was when the law changed. But I was able to qualify for Medicaid. So I don't know what Pennsylvania state is called, but your Medicaid, Obamacare, thank you, Obama, shout out to Daddy for giving us health care. I am not kidding. I am so thankful to Obamacare because that is the reason I stand here today. Obama passed incredible laws to help trans people, so Medicaid is free. It's literally everything is free for you. If you are low income, you do not have insurance, apply. Healthcare.gov, the open enrollment period starts November 1st. You could just say you lost insurance due to moving to Pittsburgh. Use the university address as your home address. No one checks up on that stuff. But maybe not good legal advice. But he's silent over there. You're good. But Medicaid is incredible, and typically every state I've ever heard of, Medicaid is very trans affirming. Even if you can't get surgery, you can typically at least start hormones and get free therapy through Medicaid. I did.
So I can't speak to the Pitt experience, but I have colleagues in the medical community that work for a UPMC clinic, which I think is actually based here in Oakland, the Adolescent Health Clinic, which
Liz Miller, sorry.
is a great potential resource and option. They have medical providers and mental health providers. When we do the gender marker changes, we are required, as Drew said, or maybe Rose, we are required to get letters for the gender marker change from mental health and or medical providers. And I routinely interact with folks at that clinic. The definition of adolescent, I know, you're thinking you're in college, I don't qualify. I think that definition is expansive up to 25, 26. So most of y'all would probably fall into their patient range. So it is an option out there or to let people know about.
Yeah, I just want to add on that. Even if you don't want to I get Medicare and Medicaid confused, whatever it's called, Obamacare, there is a provision where you can just get reproductive health, reproductive Medicare. And I would also recommend going to Planned Parenthood. The one in Pittsburgh recently started doing HRT, and it's pretty cheap already. But if you don't have health insurance or you're from Idaho or North Carolina or on your parents' health insurance at all, and you don't want them to see, you can apply for that provision right there. They will help you through it. They'll get you the coverage you need and the HRT you need really quickly. Do that.
Wow, thank you. That's we've got a couple minutes, and I'm going to turn it back to Karen, or Karen is going to stand up and take over whenever they're ready. A final question or comment? I went to women's college and I lived in the Castro, being a cis had brown women in the Castro in the early 2000s. Was an interesting experience. Very few women were there, but I've been in places that really did gender differently than the mainstream sort of day-to-day society that sometimes we see on sitcoms. And what I feel like is it was some of the most exciting, diverse ways of being and talking with people when you stop worrying what gender category to put them in. And so I think that that's the kind of thing that I hope we can strive for in our communities, that like race, like gender, these things that become more real than the people in front of us. And so I just feel like conversations like this are really great for building that community, affirming, and also just really hopefully good information. Karen, I'm looking at you. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. I'm just going to really quickly close it out. This event is part of International Week, which is running all week. So if you didn't grab a tote bag on your way in, feel free to grab one on your way out. There's a little schedule in there of other events coming up this week. Also Latinx and Hispanic Heritage Month. So I believe the calendar is on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion website. So if you want to check out other events that are part of this month on there, please do so. And just thank you for coming out.
Thank you.